as interior designers, y'all are paying for our ideas. Y'all are paying for our creativity.
Everyone who has a great taste may not be a great interior designer.
So implementing things is very important in interior designing. It's not just like sticking it with Fevicol. An interior designer has the knowledge for design. An architecture has the knowledge for engineering and designing.
So I think creativity needs to be respected.
And they want a Taj Mahal in a mega amount of 50,000 rupees. A little difficult, and now there are too many rules and regulations on how to build a house.
The RERA and
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game.
material is not the same how it used to be. Like it's not that long lasting and all those things.
It's very true.
So I've heard about this Milan fair that happens.
Oh, it's the biggest interior designing fair in the world. Creative people from all over the world come down to Milan, and the entire city is lit up. For a designer, it's all here.
So I'm back today with one more episode of Inside the Mind. The beauty about these podcasts is that I get to speak to a guest from different walks of life. And when I started my podcast, a lot of people close to me told me that, find your niche and find out who you are talking to on YouTube. Find your audience. And I was hell-bent. I was like, who am I to find my niche? I've just started. Let the people tell me what they like and I'll probably listen. So continuing that, today we speak to a young interior designer from Mumbai. And I read a quote once in a book which said that the younger generation often make the mistake of underestimating the experience of the older generation. The same quote continues, but the older generation make the bigger mistake of underestimating the exuberance of youth. So we spoke to one such exuberant Dhwani Shah today. And as I told you, she's an interior designer. I've known her for a while, very skillful, very hardworking, very talented. We discuss a lot of things today. If you are looking to get your space done up, whether office or house, then do watch this podcast. We speak about a lot of things, the colors, the layouts of houses, etc. and the trends of 2024. So I hope this episode brings you some value. So do watch. Also, if you are watching our content, as I've been saying, please like and subscribe because that's the only way you can encourage us. And it doesn't take much of you, right? Just like and subscribe so we know that we are doing something good that's bringing you value and we continue to do so. Thanks. The first thing that I want to ask you is, it's a very layman's question. What is the difference between an interior designer and an architect? Because in India, architect is the term that is used by a lot of people. So is there a difference or it means the same thing?
No, there is a major difference. Starting from the basics, there are two courses, architecture and interior designing. So there only you get to know the difference.
Okay.
Architecture is the more in-depth course, more advanced course of how to build a structure from the base, from the foundation, ground below.
Okay.
And interior designing is something where you're working inside the shell. After the structure is built by the architect, the interior designer works on the inside of the structure to design it, add color, add elements, which makes it good to look at.
Got it.
But an architect can also play the role of an interior designer.
Okay, because he or she's having a wide interior designer being a sort of a part of architecture.
Exactly. An interior designer has the knowledge for design. An architecture has the knowledge for engineering and designing. So that is the difference between them.
So if someone, since you are an interior designer, I want to know that if someone wants to say, if I'm like just starting out, I want to become an interior designer, I'm just getting done with my studies. So now what should I study? How should I get into interior design?
So there are many colleges for designing, interior designing courses, diploma, degree. Diploma being 2 years, degree being 3 years. And since it's 3 years, it gives you a more in-depth and a slow knowledge where you can grasp more. And there are colleges like in Bombay, Rachna, LS Raheja, K Raheja. So out there, you study each and every basic thing, starting from the size of a bed, the height of a bed, the spacing around it for a person to walk comfortably. Or even in spaces like Bombay, where we actually live in matchboxes, How do you design a house with more amenities, more items, more storage space in a smaller space? That is interior designing. They give you the basic knowledge of sizes, colors, how to implement things. Implementing things is very important in interior designing. It's not just like sticking it with Fevicol. It is knowing the hardware, the mechanism of things, how the application of material on the wall. They teach you all of that.
So the next thing that I want to come to is, since you mentioned all this, that if someone, see, a house especially is something that people get it made once in years. Like if I've got it made now, probably in the next 5, 10, 15 years, I might not get my house done up again. By the time it's 10 years have passed, a lot of things have changed. So a lot of people, they know that they want, their house to look good and all, but they don't have any design inspiration. Like they don't know where to start. So from an interior designer's point of view, I want to know how does one, because everything that you think of has subconsciously come from somewhere. So how do you find design inspiration? Like what are the things you look at and you know that this is what I want, or this is what, I like?
There's a whole spectrum to this. Inspiration doesn't come from one source. In fact, it is all around you. Inspiration is all around you. It's just that as a designer, you should have the knack to pick it up or an eye for inspiration. Basically, if I'm traveling somewhere, I have gone and seen this one monument, one hotel room, one bathroom, and I love the design. I know I can implement it. And that is my inspiration. I go on Pinterest. That is my inspiration in many things. I can see an object and find inspiration in that. The thing is, it's so easy for people to travel now. People have access to things. People have access to the internet to get inspiration. But mainly for a designer, it's all here. It's all here. That's why today I am an interior designer. How do I pick the material, choose the material? Okay, this material will go well along with this. I don't want this wall to be plain. I want it to be like a wave. I want there to be a structure. I want there to be character to it. That is my inspiration, which maybe the opposite person doesn't have, but he loves that.
Correct.
Maybe that person has been inspired by a design somewhere. He or she tells me about it, that this is what I want you to implement. And I love it.
Correct.
So I'm like, okay, let me do so.
Correct.
So inspiration can be anywhere. You just need to have an eye for it.
So I think what you're saying essentially means that everyone who has a great taste may not be a great interior designer, but someone who can think design, like they can have their own thoughts and then, put it like, if I choose probably the best design out of the 10 designs you show me, that doesn't necessarily make me a great designer, because I'm just liking out of what's being seen, but you're presenting me those 10 things. So you need to think design. That's how you think. Okay.
Yeah.
See, the one more thing while you were talking I thought of is that houses, especially in cities, like you see Mumbai, then you see Delhi. If we talk about the West, then we go to London. Houses look different everywhere. So can you just, taking the major cities into consideration, like especially since we are in Mumbai, there's Mumbai, then you go to London, the houses are different. Now when we travel, we can see that this is different, the house here is different. But what is essentially different, how the way houses are made, the colors, what is different?
So there are actually detailing to this. In Bombay, the houses are more modern. The eastern countries, far eastern countries, and the taste of Bombay, it all falls into the same category, more or less. When you go to America, where it's a very different kind of a design. They have shiplap and these colonial kind of designs. Very simple. They don't play around much with design.
Correct.
Unless you're some millionaire out there who's hired an interior designer.
I think the colors are subtle as well. And here we play more with colors.
We play more with colors, more with material. We play a lot with marble. Like countries like Dubai and all also. We pick a lot of marble. We just applicate it on the walls. So that itself is, a masterpiece on the wall.
Right.
The Western countries don't really do that.
Correct.
And speaking about London, they have that whole Victorian look. So they carry that forward. Again, then there are materials, These countries are dust free. So they put these carpets and all of that. In in Bombay, we can't really do that.
Yes.
It's very difficult to maintain unless you have like a whole team of house helps.
Yeah.
And like
It's only doing the same thing every day.
exactly. So it's like 4 family members and 10 staff members.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Also, one more difference I've seen is compared to India as a whole and probably America or London, that in India especially, there is a huge difference between how a middle class or a low middle class makes their house compared to someone from the higher class. There, the difference is lesser because probably that also shows the economic disparity, which is more here probably. So that's why you see the difference. Also, when you there are these 3Ds, or like if I want to make my space, say if this is my space and I want to make it, and you suggested me like 2 or 3 things. Also, now there is a time. Obviously, this is not new, but if you can throw light on how you all imagine the house in 3D, or you all show pictures that how it would look. So does that, like, is it accurate how you all are going to make it? We can work on the 3Ds.
Yes. Now it's quite accurate.
Hmm.
So there's a whole hierarchy to it. As an interior designer, I will first sit on AutoCAD. I will design one wall. This is the storage space. This is the height of it. And this is what I imagine the wall to be. This is the material I will applicate on the wall. Like that, I'll design all 4 walls, floor, ceiling, any artifacts. I will take this entire file and give it to my 3D designer. Along with images of the material that, okay, this is how you put it. I will sit with the 3D designer, pull the wall out so much. This is how the curve should be. This is where the fan is, the exact lighting. Of course, you can tweak the images a little. Like you can make the lighting a little more, a little less dim, that ambient lighting. All that is secondary. But when the client sees the first image and hypothetically, he's like, I love it. I want this to be my room. This is how it should be made. Once I have it on 3D, the image is set in the client's mind and my mind. It'll go to the contractor. Now the contractor has understood what he has to do. Now I'm leaving it to him. When he is on board, he will replicate the image with the correct mechanism, the stuff on the wall and all. When it is delivered to the client, there's just a difference of 1 or 2 things, but overall, it's the same. So 3D designs make a huge difference in today's time because not all the clients can imagine what the room would be like. It's not what it was 20 years ago. They whole and soul rely on the interior designer. I know you'll do a good job. Now even the clients are as involved that, no, you show me what it looks like. Show me what the pricing is. Show me how it'll be done.
Correct. So after you all put in so much work, so the question arises that how does an interior designer usually price their work? Now this is again not to ask you secrets about your profession, but a usual thing, because there are people who interior designer has a fixed fee, has a variable fee. So how do you know? Because this is a purely creative. We are talking about the designer, separating them from the contractor. So how does a designer decide that this is how I price? Does it depend on experience? Does it depend, like, what are the factors that come in?
So there are several factors. Number 1, like you said, experience. Experience matters a lot. If you have experience, there's a name. You're seasoned. And the client knows that the designer is going to do a fabulous job. So when the interior designer sees the space, if it's a big space, he knows, okay, let me charge on percentage. The total expenditure is what I'll charge on.
Correct.
That is my fee. If the space is small, scope or work isn't much, it's a fixed fee.
Okay, so depending on the size of the project, the experience of the designer and all those things come into.
The experience of the designer helps the client in fixing the fee, fixing the percentage. That, okay, this is what I'm ready to give to him.
Correct.
But as interior designers, y'all are paying for our ideas. Y'all are paying for our creativity.
Correct.
I am not going to sit with a nail and hammer just for you to give me my fee.
Correct.
I will come on site. I will show you all the designs. I will make sure that the work is carried out in the way that I want.
Correct.
It's a transactional thing. I'm giving you my ideas and creativity. You are paying for that. It's as simple as that. There's no product that I'm giving you except for a finished house.
Correct. So is it also the responsibility of the interior designer to see the quality of work also what the contractor does, or it's
Absolutely.
purely design?
No, it is.
It is.
It is. Again, it depends on what the client wants. The client will be like, look, you give me the designs. I will give you
Get it
my
done from my
contractors. I will get
contractor.
it done.
Correct.
I'll be like, okay, well and good. I don't need to look into that. Automatically, my fee comes down. You're just paying me for my design.
Then you're only responsible for
I'm
your
only
design,
responsible
right?
for that. I will not step foot into the space.
Correct. But then I also feel that this is just what I feel, that it's always better to work with the interior designer and the contractor that the interior designer is working with hand in hand, because then a lot of times what happens is when two separate teams work on it, if something goes wrong, then who do you blame? And probably this one will say that it's
So
that's
that
how-
always happens.
Yeah.
For example, I'm given a space to design. I will be happier to work with my contractors, not because of the money, because the contractor knows my designs.
Correct.
I'll be like, आपको याद है वो हमने उधर किया था.
Yeah, right. So you will say, हाँ ऐसे किया
हाँ.
था, and then
So it saves me the effort of drawing and showing it to him. He's like, हाँ याद है मुझे.
correct.
He will straight away do it, and I am not worried. I'm sure that the client's going to like it. What he wants, he'll get, as long as the contractor knows what he's doing. For example, if the client gets his contractor, something goes wrong, I'll be like, don't tell me. This is your contractor. He'll blame the civil guy.
Correct.
The civil guy will blame him.
Correct.
Then you're running around like a headless chicken.
Correct. But all of this happens primarily from the client's thought of saving some amount of money. And also in India, by and large, people always have this perception that the other person is here to make a little bit more extra money. So the intentions are easily doubted. So
Very easily.
I think especially creative people,
Yeah.
they charge their work.
Yeah.
It's when people don't see a tangible product being sold.
Correct.
So then
Correct.
people always feel that they are being ripped off.
Correct.
So I think creativity needs to be respected.
It needs to be
any form.
respected. That is the biggest issue we face. Each and everything is questioned. Each and everything is noted down. It becomes a hassle for us. But we know how to overcome that now. Either we're thick-skinned or, that, okay, you know what, I'll deal with this. You see the house later. I've faced this in several sites. A bathroom is being made. For example, when any space is made, the entire space is grey first because you're seeing the wall.
Correct.
They can't see any product. They don't see any design. They don't see any color. They're like, what is happening? And I'm like, give it time. Patience is key. If you let me do my work, you will see an outcome.
Correct.
And then after that, you tell me whatever you have to.
Correct.
But the clients are so impatient. And they want a Taj Mahal in a meager amount of 50,000 rupees.
Then you give them a replica of Taj Mahal. That's what happens.
That's what we
that
have to
might
do.
cost more than 50,000. Yeah. So the thing is that, see, Mumbai, especially in cities, Mumbai being the biggest example here, the real estate prices are so exorbitant that finding a house which is, forget big enough, but at least, livable is a challenge. So with that challenge, a lot of people say that there are some type of colors or some type of designs which make a smaller space look bigger. So are there any hacks that, general hacks that
Yeah.
if there is a small space, what do you do with it? Like, say if my room is there, it's a small room. Now I know that it's probably smaller than what I would have liked, but I visually still want it to look bigger or, bigger than what it is. So what are the hacks?
So there are several hacks to this. The way you can make a small space look bigger than what it is. Number one material being mirror, because mirror reflects more light.
Correct.
It makes a space look bigger than it is.
It is.
And you feel like, okay, I can breathe in this space. Lighter colors on the wall. Materials that aren't too bulky and heavy. No bulky beds. Lighter furniture. Airier furniture. So,
Lesser amount of furniture probably.
lesser amount,
What-
but even furniture that isn't too bulky. Just, metal legs, lighter colors, where you can see through and through. So it is ticking off your requirements about what you want, but it is even letting the space breathe.
Correct.
So that is the responsibility of an interior designer.
Correct. So which brings me to the question that what are the, from a designer's point of view, what's the best house layout? Like how? A rectangle or square, the living room which we talk about, and then like there are different layouts. So even if the house is not very big, but what's the ideal layout that you feel that this is the kind of house we enjoy making the most or you would like to live in?
So there's nothing like a square or a rectangle in this. It depends on the area that I'm getting and what all I can accommodate in that area. But it's a thumb rule that when you have angular spaces, you can make optimum use of it as compared to curved spaces, wavy spaces, irregular ones. Because in irregular spaces, what can you fit?
Correct.
How can you place that couch or that futon?
Couch can't be irregularly shaped. So.
Yeah, even if it is, the measurements go a little haywire. You can't sit comfortably the way you can on an angular sofa when you want to relax.
Correct.
You can't. So an ideal layout is an angular layout, be it rectangular or square, but a bigger space that can accommodate at least the bare minimum requirements.
Also colors, as we spoke earlier that India is colorful and most people here like colors, okay? So this is very important because a lot of celebrities and famous people, obviously because they have the resources and money, they think a lot when they make their house, not only in terms of the furniture or their necessities, they think in terms of colors and how it's going to affect their mood. So is it a reality that how your space looks and where you spend your time affects your mood?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Colors play a major role. The layout, the design plays a major role. It has an impact on your mood in the sense if there's a reading nook in my house, which I know is my personal space, the color of the wallpapers or the paint is darker where I want it to be a cozy corner because that is my vibe. But for example, my client wants a reading corner that is airier with more sunlight because that's where he or she can like find solace in reading. I will put lighter colors. I'll put a very light wallpaper with sunlight coming in. Like I said, glass mirrors an important role in making the space look bigger. Like that glass also penetrates sunlight. It actually brings life to that space. So if I'm choosing like a dark maroon color, even if the room isn't that small, it'll look smaller. And I'll always feel like there's something on my head. Or the space is too small for me. I can't stay in this room for too long. But some people love it.
Correct.
Some people feel like, okay, this maroon color is perfect for a den room. I can watch a nice movie here.
Correct. So it all depends on individual preferences.
But to make a space look bigger, lighter, airier, it's always lighter colors. It doesn't always close down on you. Whenever you applicate white color on the walls, the space will always look bigger.
Correct.
And then you add colorful artifacts, colorful elements. Throw cushions can be colored, bed sheets can be colored. So the white is then subdued. But it makes the space look bigger. It makes the space look lighter.
So I've heard about this Milan fair that happens. Can you elaborate what it is? I've just broadly heard about it.
So it's the biggest interior designing fair in the world that happens every year in the month of April in Milan.
Yeah.
And designers, architects, creative people from all over the world come down to Milan at that point of the year. And the entire city is lit up.
Wow.
Not like Christmas and all, but for people like us, the showrooms like Floss. So Floss is a brand for lighting. How in India we have Highbeck. Like that, it's Floss. You will see the newest lights installed by them, the newest designs by designers displayed out there. So the fair is a 5 days affair and you get a pass for it or you purchase a pass for it and you go there every year. Each hall requires 1 day. And
how many halls are there in all?
There are several actually.
Oh, so it's a huge thing.
It's a huge thing. And there are certain brands that display their work in very offbeat places. Like in maybe a palace, a warehouse, in ruins, and they will do the lighting in such a way where they highlight each couch of theirs, each furniture piece of theirs, each bar unit of theirs. So when I am going as a designer, I know, okay, this is there. I will keep it in mind. I will register it in my computer, my images, my PowerPoint, and I can display it to my clients. There are times when the client is like, I want to go to Italy. We'll go for the fair. So we go together, we shortlist all the furnitures, and then we place an order.
You can buy it there. I mean, you can place an order there.
You can place an order out there. They can even customize it for you.
Wow.
So, like I said, it's a 5 days affair. But from your end, if you ever go for it, you require energy.
And money.
Money, of course, you need. Without money,
Yes.
you won't even reach there. You don't even need the energy there.
Yes. I'm just making it clear to people that first thing you require is money, obviously, and
A
then
lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money. Once you reach there, you require a lot of energy to be on your feet and to see everything.
Correct.
And more than that, the mental strength to see and appreciate each item. Because each furniture piece out there is designed by individuals. Even that has required a lot of effort.
Correct.
So it's not only appreciation, it is actually wondering that, wow, like the whole world has come down in this one city to see what each and every brand is displaying, what each and every person is displaying. And your mind will be blown to see that, wow, all this is there. The designs are futuristic. There will be things which you haven't seen. You will see the royalty, you will see the nicheness in each piece.
So I think a smart person who probably doesn't plan to buy from there can at least plan if they are to going for a Europe holiday in such a way that they attend the fair and come. So at least they get to see so many designs which they can later probably incorporate when they make their house.
Correct.
Interesting, yeah. So then I want to ask you like a real practical question. If there's a young couple who's just got married, okay, and they have bought a house, say in a city like Mumbai, it's a 1-bedroom house, and you were to make it, like say I give the contract to you that you have to make it, like how would you do it?
So if they've bought a 1 BHK, I'm supposed to work on a budget for them. And I want to give them the best looking house. I want to deliver the best to them. What I will do is, I will go to IKEA. I will pick up ready pieces. I will place them as TV units, as shoe cabinets. But I will get a bed made by my contractor in the best marine ply. Why? Because the bed underneath has storage. Most of these beds in IKEA or China or Italy, like we mentioned, don't have storage underneath. That concept is followed here in India. So that bed, I'll get it made. So not only are they getting storage, they're getting a sturdy bed, something that they feel, yes, we've spent on.
Correct.
And the houses come together quickly because I have picked from IKEA. I've gone to different stores. I've bought artifacts. I have designed a wall with their pictures. And personally, as a designer, I love plants. I will buy planters. I will place it in different nooks and corners. I will buy hanging plants that accentuates the look of a place. A kitchen where I know only one person is working. I don't need to build a massive kitchen unless that person has that passion for cooking.
Correct.
So I will take up more space from outside the kitchen, make the kitchen larger. That's where the compromise comes.
Okay. Also, there is a concept, I don't know, you call it open kitchen or what, that you can see through, so at least it looks...
Yeah, so the space looks bigger visually. There are no walls dividing it. It makes, when you enter the house, it makes space look, okay, wow, this is a big space. It's very nice. It's very cute. It's very comfortable to live in. Not many people abide by that. They want the kitchen to be very separate. That, no, you know what, I don't want to see the kitchen.
Correct.
So,
but since it's a young couple, we can give an open kitchen. The husband can keep seeing the wife. They both can keep seeing each other.
And they can keep eating outside and cook less.
Yes. Also, one more question, a follow-up question to this. Since it's a 1 BHK house you are talking, so obviously someone ultra-rich isn't living there is what we are assuming. So give me just two budgets here, like a premium budget for a 1 BHK house if you do it, and an economical budget, leaving aside the white goods.
Okay.
And we take the space to be a practical Mumbai space. It's a 1 BHK is a 600 square feet house, I'm assuming, or lesser. 500, 600?
500 square feet, comfortably. 500 square feet. So if they want to spend a premium amount on it, like I said, then sky's the limit. I can buy a Michelangelo, a book-matched Michelangelo, that's a marble, and place it on a wall behind the sofa. There alone, they have spent some
Correct.
few lakhs.
But that I'm saying that this is a couple who's probably bought a house for 4 crores, depending on where they've bought it.
Yeah.
So obviously they would spend a percentage of that.
on it.
So give me a premium budget as per that. Like,
That's what I'm saying. Like in a premium budget, the sky's the limit.
Hmm.
They've bought a book-matched marble,
Hmm.
spent a few lakhs on it. They have bought furniture pieces from stores from around Bombay,
Hmm.
and they have spent on that.
Hmm.
They have spent on carpentry.
Hmm.
They have spent on premium materials. Coming to that, I would say a good 20 to 30 lakhs in a 500 square feet. I would say like sky's the limit, fancy lighting, this, that.
So 30 lakhs is probably a premium way you can make
Premium
it.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then if I have to cut down, mar ke, I would give it to them in 8 lakhs.
It's possible, 8 lakhs.
Mar ke.
So then it's going to be a lot of compromise.
Comfortably, 15 lakhs, I can tell you.
Which is livable still.
Which is livable.
Correct. Okay, great. Last thing I want to ask you, it's a personal question. Next week, I am supposed to attend a housewarming of a friend. Now, rather than going through the hassle, I'll ask the expert, like, what should I gift? Is there anything that I can gift?
Yeah, I mean, since it's a housewarming, you can gift them artifacts, you can gift them household items like fancy trays, you can gift them candles, you can, instead of just sweets and chocolates. But as a house owner, what I would do is I wouldn't buy the items beforehand.
Correct.
Once my housewarming is done, once I know what I've got, after that I'll make my purchases. Okay, you know what, I haven't got this, I've got this tray now, I don't need this tray.
Correct.
So always give them something that they can use.
Correct. Or maybe I'll stick to chocolates. At least they won't feel that I've given them something which is useless.
Yeah.
They'll remember me while eating the chocolates at least. So tell me one thing that how do you develop a design taste? Where do you start from? How do you develop?
I think that is a very subjective thing. As a creative person, some people are born with it. They choose the path of creativity since childhood. And you start building on it when you start educating yourself. When you start educating yourself with access to traveling, exposing yourself to different things, having the interest to visit exhibits, creative things like an art gallery, a painting workshop, you understand the combination of colors, you understand the space, the dynamics of design, is when you start building on that and you understand that, okay, this is what I like, this is what I can implement. I want to become an interior designer, I want to become a fashion designer, I want to become a product designer. So the creative field branches out into several fields. It's not something you can be taught, it is something that you are born with. And
you work on it.
You work on it.
Correct.
You run your brain in that direction. Okay, this is what I want to do. You start playing with materials. You fall, you rise, and that's how you learn.
So I think it all goes to the same place, that you need to realize from within that this is what I'm made for, or this is what I like, and then you build on it.
Yeah, that's where your potential lies.
Correct. So also one more thing, we all have bought things, which we thought at that time that we made a very smart decision, okay? But sometimes it just turns out that it was an emotional purchase, an impulse purchase, okay? So how do you separate the two, like thoughtful and emotional? Because a lot of times I've picked up things and in an unimportant way that this is like not even important. That thing has turned out to be like very useful to me. And a lot of times I've, really loved something and thought like this is what I wanted, and it's never really been of any use. And this has happened with all of us at some point.
Yeah, correct.
So how do you separate?
So whenever I go shopping with my clients to start doing up the house, the client gets so excited. I want to buy this. I'll put it in that corner. And I'm like, okay, by all means. But I don't think it makes sense because you won't use it for a long time. It'll just be like a standalone piece. He's like, no, I love this showpiece. I want it. That is an impulse buy.
Okay.
But then he won't use it. it'll be like an obstacle in the house. And he'll be like, what the hell did I purchase? So sometimes that's when an interior designer also plays a role, but the client should listen to the interior designer.
Correct. I think at times just having a lot of money will result in impulse purchases if you don't control yourself.
Yeah.
Can happen.
And for the people who spend wisely, will never make an impulse purchase. In fact, they won't even make the purchases that are important.
Yeah, they won't make the necessary purchase, forget the impulse purchase. That's true. So also now there is one thing that I've heard, I don't know if it's true or not true, but a lot of people say that just like people today are not the same as people were 20, 30 years back. Similarly for materials, people talks that, material is not the same how it used to be. Like it's not that long lasting and all those things. Is it true? If so, why?
It's very true. When we were kids, the houses that we stayed in were very sturdy.
Correct.
You didn't need to hit a nail on the door to fix it.
Correct.
Because the plywood, the materials, the quality of wood was very upgraded, very high standard as what it is opposed to now.
Correct.
And that's because over the years, the quality hasn't deteriorated naturally. We have done it.
Okay.
We have done so.
To get the price point right or something
The
like
prices have increased. There is inflation.
There
is inflation every year.
What they want to make more money. That's why, like, what is it?
So, if there's inflation, there are two things. I will deliver the same quality to you. But are you willing to pay that price to me?
Okay. I want to pay the same price as before, then you go down on the quality.
I'll go down on the quality. And the other aspect is, I want to make money in life. I will deliver a plywood to you. It'll be good for 10 years. After 10 years, it'll get spoiled. You will come back to me again. Otherwise, how am I going to fill my stomach? I also want to make money the way you do.
Correct.
So, as a manufacturer, I will purposely put in some defect.
Correct.
The quality won't be as good.
Correct.
I can't let you rest for 20 years in peace. I also need to run a business.
True. So this is not related to that, but while you were speaking, this came to my mind. One of the phone companies, without naming them, they actually admitted that the software updates that they have, the software updates, they come after 1 year of you using the phone. They actually make the phone slower, and they admitted to that, and they do it so that you change your phone.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to use your phone for 3, 4, 5 years. Otherwise, how are the phone companies going to make money? So I think the same thing applies everywhere.
I can't let you sit in your house where not even one nail has fallen off.
Correct. And also this applies to not like obviously the materials, but also the quality of buildings that we see now. Like you go to, Fort, it's in Mumbai, okay, you see those buildings which are more than 100 years old of the colonial era, and they still look good for the next 100 years. And you see some buildings which are made recently, like 10 years back, 15 years back, there's already problems with leakage.
There is, because those were all stone buildings, and today's material that these new builders are using, they are light in weight. They're using gypsum walls. So they consume lesser space. They are lighter in weight, so not too much load on the building.
Yeah.
But the downside to it is, in that room, whatever you're speaking about, I can hear, and if I'm pissed, I'm just going to punch through the wall.
Yes.
And my hand is going to go through.
Correct.
Bricks add to the weight of the building. So it's a little difficult. And now there are too many rules and regulations on how to build the house.
The RERA and...
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game.
Correct. In fact, the gypsum walls that you were talking about, it might be a little technical for a lot of people, but this is a very good point that you're talking about, because a lot of these new houses that are made, the walls are so thin. I think it's done to make use of the space.
Make use of the space, and so that there's not too much load on the building.
Okay.
Because like I said, in Bombay now we live in matchboxes. 30, 40 years back when I used to boast about, I bought a house worth so many square feet, the carpet area is so much. It was actually that. But now we have to calculate, is this the carpet area? The carpet area includes the walls.
Yeah.
So that's why to make more use of the space, even 1 inch, 2 inches, they're giving us gypsum walls.
Correct. So they're also weaker, like it's easier to break.
Of course, yes, they are.
One more thing is that people are nowadays picking ready furniture. I hear of people traveling to places like Italy and China and all these places, Also, people buy IKEA, like, which is ready furniture and all that. So not talking about any particular brand, but people do pick ready furniture. So is there a difference between the quality and like standards of different?
Yeah, there is. So, speaking about the three things that you named, Italy, China, IKEA, all of these are factory made. All of them. IKEA is accessible to all kinds of people, higher strata to the lower strata,
Correct.
because it is at very affordable prices.
Right.
And these are used by people who are living in rental homes, or they want to build up something so quickly at not such a high price. So IKEA really caters to these kind of people. As for upper middle class people who are building a new house, they want to pick ready furniture. They're like, you know what? Instead of buying furniture from Bombay or getting it handmade, I want the furniture to come in quickly. Let me just go to China. Now, China is China, and they make a copy of everything. But they will even deliver the quality, which is not so long-lasting, but it is long-lasting. And then there are people who have spent a humongous amount of money, that you can't even register, on a house. That house boasts about their income, their business, and it is the empty canvas that they've played on. When you know they have spent so much on a house and on the interiors, they are about to go to Portugal and Italy to brands that are unheard of by other people, but heard by very known designers. They will go to Italy and pick up sofas worth 4 lakhs, 10 lakhs, then sky's the limit. So there's just like an 8-feet sofa costing you 5 lakhs because there's leather on it, there's this color, there's like these kind of detailings on it.
And the brand probably that they're buying.
And the brand name. Like, as for a woman I know, when I'm picking up bags, I'm paying for the brand.
Of course.
Yeah.
So for bags, I mean, that's a completely different thing. So I've seen bags and I've wondered like what is so great about the bag, but then
You never question a woman about it.
So I think we've probably spoken about most things. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I covered whatever I had to, but just speaking for all the designers out there, respect their creativity. You are paying for that. And as designers, you all need to trust us because we want to deliver the best.
Great. The message is clearly heard by everyone.
Yeah.
Also, so this, I'm assuming, is your first podcast experience. How's the experience, like talking about your work and stuff?
It was fun. It's fun. It's a very new experience. I'm getting to be candid and I'm in my own space right now. I don't feel nervous. And I had a good chat with you speaking about my work, how it's done, and to educate the people out there, like, you know, how interior designer also works.
Correct.
So it was a lot of fun.
Great. It was great for me as well. For someone like me who meets people from different walks of life, my information bank just keeps, building. So I'm very happy to talk to you. Thanks a lot, Dhwani.
Thank you.